If you want to be better at guessing whodunit, then you need these 5 tips. As a mystery reader and a mystery author, I know that there are only a finite number of ways for writers to trick you. In this video, I'm going to be sharing 5 of my secrets that help me guess whodunit in almost every single mystery I read. Though, be warned, after you listen to these tips, you may never be able to read a mystery or a thriller the same way again. I'm spilling the secrets of the mystery writing trade, so mon ami, put on your detective hat and let's get started. Note, I am not going to be spoiling any books in this video, and I encourage you to not spoil any books in the comments section either, but I will be using a couple vague examples from books that I've read. Number 1, if there is a character or a subplot in a mystery and you're not sure why it was included, it's probably relevant to the solution. Or you're reading a bad book. That's also a possibility. I truly believe that a good mystery writer is intentional with all the details they choose to share with the reader. Yes, of course, it's good to have misdirection and red herrings, but there ultimately needs to be a point to having that in the book. And no, the point can't just be, well, I wanted to lead the reader astray. Every character, every subplot, and every detail should ultimately serve a purpose. So, if there's a character who seemingly isn't playing a role in the book, or you start hearing about so-and-so's backstory and you're not sure how it's relevant, stow that away in the back of your mind because it could be relevant to the ultimate solution to the mystery. In one mystery that I read and really enjoyed, it mentioned early on in the book that a married couple was suffering from infertility. Now, you might think that this piece of their backstory is completely irrelevant, but not so fast. Because later, after the husband is murdered, we discover that over the years he had numerous affairs. And it turns out that one of his lovers gave him syphilis, which he then passed on to his wife, making her unable to have children. And that, my friends, is the reason that ultimately his wife murdered him. So when a mystery writer is telling you information that doesn't seem important, do not dismiss it right away. It may come back into play later on in the story. Next up, tip number 2, look out for any potential nicknames or 2 characters who could actually be the same person. This is especially common in modern day thrillers where a lot of the time they will have 2 characters from 2 separate storylines and reveal that they are actually one person. So if Sally knows Jack and Betty knows Bob, but Sally has never met Bob and Betty has never met Jack, you have to consider the fact that they may be the same person using 2 different names. Some writers also give this away because they use a name that could very easily be a nickname for something else. For example, a long time ago, I read a book where there was a character who had a ridiculously posh sounding name like Chad Billingsley Moneybanks. Meanwhile, there was a character in a separate storyline in the book who was known only as Trey. So then I started thinking about how common it is in wealthy, affluent, old money families to have a name that is passed down. Meanwhile, the name Trey sounds a lot like trace, the Spanish word for 3. So I realized that Trey could very easily be a nickname for someone who is known as the Third. Then, plot twist, it turned out that Chad Billingsley Moneybanks was actually Chad Billingsley Moneybanks the Third, aka Trey. Number 3, be wary of any victim who survives. If a character is attacked by the killer but miraculously survives without any life-threatening injuries, or a character says, that poisoned drink was actually meant for me, I'm so lucky that I didn't drink it, I was the intended victim. Be suspicious. Be very suspicious. Somebody who is truly guilty may use a false attack to divert suspicion away from themselves because people don't think of victims as potential perpetrators. This is something that I see in mystery novels frequently, and it's also something that you see in real life. Sometimes murderers will try to paint themselves as victims who survive so they can evade police suspicion. For instance, I once watched a true crime video about a boy who murdered his entire family and then tried to make it look like a home invasion. And conveniently, the home invaders killed every single member of his family except for himself, who they simply shot in the leg. Yeah, the police didn't fall for that one. Tip number 4 for solving mysteries and thrillers is to always question the source of information. If you are presented with information, before you take it as gospel, think about what the source is and if that source can be trusted. If I tell you that I saw someone doing something suspicious, did I actually see it, or am I making the whole thing up to cover up my own ass? People can lie in their testimonies, or they could believe what they're saying but have made an honest mistake. So, for example, if I tell the detective that I saw Bob at the vicar's house on Thursday, is that because I actually physically saw Bob knock on the vicar's door and go inside? Or is it just because I saw Bob's car parked outside and therefore assumed that Bob was the one at the house? If it's the latter case, perhaps I made a genuine mistake and actually it wasn't Bob who went to the vicar's house, but someone who had access to Bob's car, such as his wife who's having an affair with the vicar, or his maid who took the car out while Bob was at work. When characters are giving their account of events, they could be lying or sharing information that they genuinely misinterpreted. So before you take their words at face value, always think about the possibilities. And finally, number 5, question everyone. And I mean everyone. When I read a mystery or a thriller, every single character is a potential suspect in my mind. It doesn't matter if they seemingly have no motive. It doesn't matter if they seemingly have an alibi. It doesn't matter if the sleuth or detective isn't looking at them as a suspect. They're all guilty until proven innocent in my mind. And sometimes mystery or thriller writers will try to trick you by diverting your attention and making you look over here when actually the killer is over here. For example, I have read many books where there is a detective character who is seemingly investigating the case, but in the end, it is revealed that the detective is actually the murderer. You could very easily not consider the police officer a suspect because they seemingly have a role in the story as the investigator of the case, and seemingly no reason to want to off the victim. But sometimes the author will make the murderer be a character who seems to be embroiled in a completely separate storyline, only for the storylines to converge at the end. Motives can always be hidden and alibis can always be broken. Heck, every time I start the first book in the series, I will look at the main character's best friend as a potential murderer, and 9 times out of 10, that best friend actually is just an innocent best friend who's meant to be a recurring character in the series, but they're not my best friend, okay? They're a suspect. They may have the main character's trust, but they don't have my trust yet. So look at every single character in the book, even the ones that you think you can trust, and ask yourself, could they potentially be the killer? Writers will try to get you to eliminate certain people as suspects, and that's how they get you. So by eliminating no one, you will be much more difficult to fool. So everybody, those are my tips to get better at solving mysteries and thrillers. If you watched this video to the end, first, please do give it a like. It means a lot to me and helps me know what content my audience is enjoying. Secondly, if you want to show your support, why don't you leave a skull emoji in the comment section? Thank you so much for watching this video today. It was a lot of fun, and if you enjoyed it, please do consider watching this video from my new series, Mystery Trope Talk, where I do a deep dive into closed circle mysteries. Thank you so much for being here today, and subscribe so you don't miss a single upload. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.